or you can take it to market right away. But everybody else has the same idea. It's harvest time, so the market is flush, supply is high, demand is low. So what we do is we teach farmers how to properly store their goods and to monitor market prices so that they can keep their goods for longer, sell them at a higher price later down the road. And repayment, as I mentioned, is extremely flexible. We allow farmers to repay kind of whenever they see their field officers throughout the season. And another example of an innovation here is in Kenya, we've actually moved to entirely mobile repayments. And this is a great innovation because it cuts down on a lot of administrative costs. It cuts down on bookkeeping, cuts down on fraud from field officers or group leaders, walking around with a lot of cash. And it's made the program in Kenya much more efficient, which allows us to expand much more quickly. So yeah, that's our complete service bundle. And we really think about it as each of these components as links in a chain. Because without financing, you wouldn't be able to afford high quality seeds and fertilizer. Without distribution, they may as well be in another country. Without training, you don't know how to actually leverage these goods that you have access to. And then without market facilitation, you can't maximize your profits. So putting all of these four components together is what allows One Acre Fund to have really revolutionary impact. And to tell you more about that, I'm going to hand it over to Diana.
Thanks, Julie. Okay. So now that you know about who we are, what we do, and how we do it, I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into our success metrics. How do we know if we're doing well? What do we measure ourselves upon? And how do we know the right path forward? Number one metric is impact. We define impact as the difference between what a farmer would have experienced in terms of profit before joining our program versus after joining our program. Basically, we're measuring the ability of our farmer to become more prosperous. And on average, a farmer who joins One Acre Fund harvests double as what they harvested before on just 1 acre of land. So they might experience surplus, i.e. more food than they had before to feed themselves than they for the first time. Here's a little bit of insight from 2015. The control farmer, so somebody who's in a similar area and has perhaps a similar lifestyle and characteristics to a One Acre Fund farmer, their profit was $250 US. Compared to a similar farmer, but who was in the One Acre Fund program, so our treatment group, there was a $137 increase in their farm profits up to $387. You can see as a percentage, this is quite significant. So what do the farmers do with their extra income? This is an example from Kenya, a study that was done to find out with that extra money that they now have in their pocket from that impact that One Acre Fund has created, where are they spending it? So you can see that it's split somewhat equally between school fees and new business farm activities. And there's also some portion of that money, about a quarter of it, that's going towards quality of life expenditures such as medical expenses, improved housing, and a smaller proportion that goes to additional nutritious food. So that might be selling their harvest at the market and then using that money to buy different types of crops to diversify the types of food that they're eating, which can actually lead to a much healthier lifestyle rather than depending on a few staple crops for their family's diets. The second indicator that we look at is scale. So even if we have a very large impact per farmer, we want to reach the most possible farmers, and we do this through scale, and that's our second metric. As you can see, over the last 10 years, we've increased our scale exponentially and now serve more than 400,000 farmers. So what does this get us? This gets us scalable impact. So we take one field officer who provides the entire service bundle that Jillian walked you through. The financing, distribution, training, and market facilitation aspects. He or she, that field officer, offers this program or this service bundle to, on average, 200 smallholder farmers in his or her direct vicinity or village. That indirectly then reaches around 1,000 people if you assume 5 people per household are benefiting from being part of their household, being part of the 1 Acre Fund core model. One more thing I wanted to mention is that there are 2 main ways that we think about increasing our scale. One is growing in. That means serving a higher density of farmers within one area. The second is growing out. That's expanding to new geographic regions, whether it's within one country or to other countries. We'll get to that shortly. Lastly, the third metric that we think about is financial sustainability. And this is because we operate as a social enterprise, and we hope that our revenues will eventually completely 100% cover our operating costs. This 99%, it can be changed to 97% of farmers who repay loans in full and on time. That then allows us to cover 79% of our operating expenses currently. That means that farmer revenues, their pay for service, almost more than 3/4 covers our operating costs. Our goal is to become, as I mentioned, 100% financially sustainable. For the remaining amount, so for every $1 of donor money, there's $4 of farmer contribution. So that remaining $1, we seek from donors. So now I'm going to give you a small insight into what the business challenge that we're presenting to you is all about. We're thinking about the future. As you know, there's 50 million smallholder farmers I think that's in sub-Saharan Africa alone, and we currently serve less than 1% of those. Our market share and our market penetration, although we've seen great success over the last decade, it's still very small. There's still a lot of work to be done. So we're looking for new country expansion as one of the primary ways that we can increase our overall impact and scale. As you can see here, we're projecting that in a little over 10 years, our total client numbers, a larger share than half of those will come from new countries, meaning countries that we currently don't even operate in. That means there's a lot of work to be done over those next 10 years. Just a brief introduction to how we consider new countries. There's a 3-phased approach that 1 Acre Fund uses when trying to identify and evaluate new countries. Phase 1 is market analysis, and phase 2 is initial scouting. Both of these phases use qualitative and quantitative metrics to identify, is this the right place for us to expand to? Will 1 Acre Fund's model be successful there? And is this an opportunity that we should pursue at this time? Some of the factors that we might look at, firstly is population. So how dense is the area? Will our field officers be able to reach those farmers? And will it be efficient for them to do that? And what percentage of people in that country are smallholder farmers? What percentage of people would actually be able to benefit from the program offering that we have? Secondly is agronomic. So what is the rainfall, the crop mix, and the land size? Are they farming something that we have experience in, that we have a competitive advantage in? Some of our main crops that we serve right now are maize and beans, but we're also branching out into other crops. Lastly is macro business indicators. One might be how friendly the government is, how safe the area is, how stable it would be to operate. Will it be safe for our field officers to operate there? Will farmers be able to actually reap the benefits, or does their environment not allow them to? And the third phase is the pilot launch. So once we've gathered that information through the market analysis, which is largely done as like desk research, and then the initial scouting, which sends somebody to that country, or take somebody in that country from One Acre Fund to see the situation on the ground. Then we get to the third phase, which is the pilot launch. There are typically different steps of this pilot launch. It might start with a very small number of farmers, such as 50 or 100, that we serve and that we measure our impact. So we weigh harvests. We measure whether our program is working for those farmers before we launch a full-scale country in those places. And also assessing the market size. So is the desk research that we did, is it accurate? And can we actually see ourselves reaching the scale that we had envisioned in those countries? Great, so that's the introduction to One Acre Fund. You will be receiving a written case with more information. And we look forward to answering your questions at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Isn't until 10:30. So what we're going to do is after you guys get sent back, you'll be sitting in the room with your ambassadors. Ambassadors will have the case documents, but they're not going to be instructed to give it to you until exactly 10:30 a.m. What you guys can do in the meantime is you can set up some of your case materials, so things like your laptops, pens, note papers, setting up the room how you would like to. We're all right with you guys doing that. The next thing is we will be uploading a copy of this presentation to YouTube. Once it's been uploaded to YouTube, the ambassador who is on duty on your floor will be letting you guys know how to access that YouTube link.
It's just on our YouTube channel. You Google MMICC, you look up MMICC on YouTube, you'll find us, it'll be there.
Yeah. So in terms of the schedule for today, we're going to be giving you guys lunch at around 12 p.m. That's going to be delivered to your rooms. The lunch is sandwiches and chips. That shouldn't be a problem. For the Q&A, that is exactly at 2 p.m. We're going to have ambassadors and runners fetch you guys at around 1:40 so that we can make it for the 2 p.m. time. We'll be giving you 1 hour notice, so at 1 p.m. so you can get ready. You guys are welcome in the meantime to change into more casual clothes to begin your crack. However, we ask that you come back in business formal attire again. The way the Q&A works, just to remind everyone, is each team is allowed to ask 2 questions. For each round, we have names pulled out of a hat so that we can decide the order of how questions are asked. And the other thing is that you're welcome to skip your question if you would like to. Please don't feel